Okay, look, we have all been there, right? Your engineering team dedicates endless cycles to making a product faster, and yet the needle on the actual user experience barely seems to budge. In this explainer, we are going to dive in and solve the incredibly expensive mystery of why our software performance optimizations so rarely actually work. Picture this. You've got this highly capable engineering team, right? And they just spent 2 entire sprints compressing images and adding a brand new content delivery network. Page weight is down, the servers are just humming along perfectly. The developers are high-fiving each other, feeling amazing about their work. But then, bam, they face this brutal reality when they finally look at the actual user experience. The product was exactly as slow as before. No way, right? Why does this happen? Well, confusing an engineering checklist with a true diagnostic problem is arguably the most expensive mistake a product team can make. To figure out why that team failed and how you can avoid their fate, we're going to follow this roadmap today. First, fixing the wrong problem. Second, the theory of constraints. Third, the 5-step bottleneck ladder. Fourth, the B2B checkout mystery. And finally, finding your true constraint. All right, let's jump right into part 1, fixing the wrong problem. We absolutely have to start by fundamentally shifting how we view product performance. We need to move away from the really loud complaints. Look at this contrast. There's a massive difference between the visible symptoms people loudly complain about and the invisible issues that are actually costing the business money. Every single team has a list of known slow things, a heavy dashboard, a clunky upload flow. But these are usually just the squeaky wheels. They're built entirely from anecdotes, a couple of customer complaints, or maybe a founder's pet peeve from a demo. They are highly visible. But listen, visibility and business impact are absolutely not the same thing. On the flip side, you have the silent killers. We're talking funnel drop-offs, hidden backend database queries, weird background latency. We instinctively want to optimize the stuff we can see, but the true bottlenecks, they almost always live where we aren't looking. So moving on to section 2, the theory of constraints. If we can't trust user complaints or even our own intuition, we need a totally new mental model. Enter the theory of constraints. Now, this is a principle borrowed directly from manufacturing. Think about the early days of assembly lines. Factory managers realized pretty quickly that if you have 5 machines building a car, and one of those machines is twice as slow as the others, making the fast machines even faster doesn't give you more cars. It literally just creates a giant traffic jam. The system's output is strictly governed by its single slowest stage, not the average of all stages combined. Software is the exact same way. Performance isn't just some general quality you vaguely add to a product, like sprinkling magic dust on it. A product doesn't have a broad performance problem. It has one very specific constraint at a time. Think about it like a giant funnel. Speeding up 4 super fast stages of a 5-stage process does absolutely nothing for the end user if that 5th stage is still gating everything. Optimizing broadly just spreads your effort way too thin, and honestly, it changes nothing. This is the contrarian truth that so many product roadmaps just get completely wrong. Effort gets diluted across 10 different, tiny improvements, none of which actually touch the real constraint, and the product's perceived speed stays totally stagnant. Which brings us to section 3, the 5-step bottleneck ladder. Okay, so how do we practically find that single gating stage before we start writing any code? We use a foolproof workflow. Think of yourself as a performance detective using this methodology before a single optimization ticket is even created. Step 1. Symptom mapping. Gather the clues, collect the rage clicks, pull the support tickets, but treat them strictly as hypotheses, not facts. Step 2. Instrumentation. Measure the actual reality of the system with real user monitoring. Step 3 is constraint isolation. Find the true culprit, that one single stage consuming the absolute most time. Step 4, targeted intervention. Hit it hard. Put a disproportionate, intense amount of effort into that one constraint until it completely breaks. And finally, step 5, rebaseline. Measure it all again. Because once you fix one constraint, a new culprit will inevitably take its place. Let's see how this plays out in the real world in section 4, the B2B checkout mystery. To really see this ladder in action, let's examine a real scenario involving a B2B SaaS checkout product. Here is the setup. The product had this really well-known, super loud complaint. The dashboard feels sluggish. Everyone just assumed this sluggish dashboard was the main culprit causing all the user friction. So what did the team do? They spent pretty much an entire quarter polishing it to absolute perfection. They did all the classic best practices we developers love to do. They lazy-loaded widgets, trimmed down the JavaScript bundles, aggressively cached queries, the whole shebang. And what was the grand result of all that incredibly expensive engineering effort? A grand total of 400 milliseconds, barely the blink of an eye. But here's the real kicker. There was absolutely zero movement in checkout conversions. The dashboard was never the actual constraint, it was simply the loudest symptom. But when they finally stepped back and actually instrumented the full funnel, the data revealed this massive red bar. It was a 2.8-second database query, just for plan pricing, that was acting as the silent killer. It was taking 5 times longer than every other stage combined. Nobody complained about the checkout being slow because users were simply abandoning the process in sheer frustration before they even finished. Fixing that one single database query with a simple index change moved completed checkouts way more than a full quarter of dashboard polishing ever did. And that leads us perfectly into Section 5, finding your true constraints. Fixing that single database query moved the needle immensely. So how can you apply this discipline today in your very next planning cycle? You don't need a massive performance team to start, you just need strict discipline about sequence. Measure before you guess by pulling real user monitoring data. Map out the full user journey, not just those squeaky wheel screens. Isolate the single largest constraint before you fix anything at all, and ruthlessly target just one constraint at a time. Seriously, resist the urge to run a bunch of parallel fixes across completely unrelated stages. The reality is, most performance problems aren't solved by just working harder on speed. They are solved by working narrower. Now, this requires some truly uncomfortable discipline. You have to be willing to look a stakeholder in the eye and tell them that their pet screen isn't the priority because the data points somewhere else entirely. It means actually sitting with the data before reaching for a roadmap. But I promise you, that discipline is the exact difference between a product that merely feels incrementally tweaked and one that actually feels incredibly fast. So here is what you need to take away from this. The next time your team complains that a product feels slow, I want you to challenge them with this exact question. Slow where, measured how, and compared to what constraint? Speed isn't just a feature you sprinkle onto a roadmap. It is the trace left behind by systematically removing one true constraint at a time. So take a hard look at your current sprint. Are you actually fixing a constraint today, or are you just greasing another squeaky wheel?